Jerome Williams stared at his phone, finger hovering over the $300 transfer button. 5 years of this routine, a promise to his dying wife Kesha to support her mother Diane. But each payment reopened wounds that never healed. Another bill notification. Electric company threatening disconnection. $167 by Friday. His electrician salary was decent, but raising 8-year-old Zara alone in Chicago meant every dollar had purpose. Except those $300 that vanished into Diane Jefferson's account monthly. "Daddy, can we get pizza tonight?" Zara bounced in, her smile pure Kesha. "How about grilled cheese instead?" Jerome suggested, smoothing her braided hair. She nodded with resilience that broke his heart. His phone buzzed. Diane's text. "Need to discuss payment method. Call me tonight." In 5 years, she'd never wanted to discuss anything. Something felt wrong. That night, Jerome opened the box of Kesha's belongings from the funeral. At the bottom, a funeral home card with Diane's signature, completely different from the account information she'd given him. His hands trembled. What if everything was built on lies? Next morning, Troy Henderson arrived with coffee and concern. "I need to tell you about that account." Troy worked at First National Bank. The activity patterns don't match an elderly woman on fixed income. Large deposits, frequent transfers. Your $300 gets moved within 24 hours. Troy handed him paper. "The address doesn't match. It's Riverside Apartments on Oak Street, short-term rentals. And there's no Diane Jefferson at that address." Jerome felt cold realization settle. "I tried calling her number. Goes straight to voicemail. It's registered to a different name," Troy said. "And that account receives payments from at least 4 other sources. You might not be the only victim." Monday, Jerome parked outside Riverside Apartments. The building manager, Pete, pulled up records. Apartment 214's been rented 3 years by Kesha Williams. Nice lady, mid-30s. The name hit like voltage. Pete showed security footage. Jerome's breath caught. The woman was older, thinner, but unmistakably his wife. The timestamp, 3 days ago. More footage showed Kesha healthy, vibrant, carrying expensive groceries. With a man, intimate and familiar. Recent footage showed she was pregnant. Jerome sat in his truck, shaking. Kesha was alive, 20 minutes away, building a new family while collecting his money. Private investigator Marcus Reed listened to Jerome's story. "This is wire fraud, insurance fraud, identity theft. Do you want closure or to press charges?" Jerome stared out the window at the neighborhood where he'd raised Zara alone, struggling with bills while honoring a dead woman's wishes. "I want the truth. And consequences." Marcus arrived with documents. Hospital discharge showing Kesha released alive. Death certificate from a different hospital, signed by a doctor whose license was later suspended for falsifying records. "The urn contains a stranger's ashes," Marcus said. "Your wife's mother handed you some random woman's remains. Life insurance payout, $50,000 to Diane Jefferson." Kesha changed the beneficiary 3 days before the staged death. "Are you prepared for what comes next?" Marcus asked. "Your daughter will learn her mother chose to abandon her." Jerome looked at Zara's photographs. "Schedule the FBI meeting. I want them to know Jerome Williams isn't anybody's fool anymore." Thursday morning, Jerome canceled the transfer. Diane called immediately, panicked. "There's been a mistake. I need that money for rent, medications. Cash flow problems," Jerome said calmly. "I'll try to send half next week." "You can't just stop. Kesha made you promise." Her voice transformed, harder, calculating. "That money needs to be there tomorrow or there'll be consequences." "What consequences?" "Kesha told me things about you. If you don't keep sending money, I might share those stories." Jerome almost felt sorry for her. "Funny thing, Diane, I drove by your address. The people there say no Diane Jefferson has ever lived there." The phone went dead. Marcus called. "FBI's interested. Agent Sarah Chun wants to meet. They think your wife and her mother are part of a larger operation targeting grieving spouses." Diane texted, "Meet me tomorrow, noon, Lincoln Park. Come alone." Lincoln Park stretched along Lake Michigan. Jerome arrived early, wire taped to his chest, Marcus's surveillance team positioned throughout the area. Diane appeared, moving with brisk purpose. "You're playing with things you don't understand," she warned. "There are other people involved who don't appreciate disruption. Tell me how this really works," Jerome said steadily. Diane lit a cigarette. "Kesha came to me 3 months before she supposedly died. Wanted out but didn't want to hurt you or lose Zara. I connected her with someone who helps women disappear." She exhaled smoke. "At first it was simple. Fake death, collect insurance, disappear. But Kesha got greedy. Why not stay dead and collect from multiple sources? She studied you for 10 years. Knew exactly how to make you feel guilty enough to support her mother forever. How many families are you destroying? Enough to make it profitable. 3 operations in different cities, maybe 15 active income streams. Your wife's in Florida, pregnant with a real estate developer's baby. She sends me 20% of what she collects from you and 2 other men." Jerome stood slowly. "There's one problem with your system. Sometimes when you overload a circuit, the whole thing burns down." Federal agents emerged from concealed positions. Jerome's hand closed over Diane's wrist. "Don't make this harder. You've done enough damage." 3 months later, Jerome testified in federal court. The investigation had unraveled frauds spanning 4 states, devastating dozens of families. Diane received 15 years. Kesha faced 30 years for multiple counts across state lines. 6 months after trial, Jerome stood in his renovated kitchen. The $18,000 recovered through asset forfeiture had transformed their home. Zara's college fund finally had real balance. The hardest conversation came when Zara asked about her mother's choices. Jerome prepared for devastation. Instead, his 8-year-old listened with amazing resilience, then asked if they could finally get that dog. Sunday dinner with Troy and Maria had become tradition, chosen family that mattered more than blood. Jerome's promotion came with respect from colleagues who'd watched him handle catastrophe with quiet dignity. As Zara fell asleep during movie night, Jerome carried her to bed. The monthly $300 now went into her college fund, earning compound interest instead of funding lies. Jerome Williams had spent 5 years mourning a woman who'd never died, supporting obligations that had never been real, carrying guilt that had never been his. Now he was simply a father who loved his daughter, who'd learned that choosing yourself wasn't selfish. It was the foundation that made choosing others possible and meaningful. The recovery wasn't linear. Some mornings Jerome woke expecting to feel the old weight of obligation, only to find it genuinely gone. The absence felt strange at first, like phantom pain from a severed limb. He'd spent so long defining himself through grief and duty that freedom required learning who he was without those anchors. Therapy helped. Dr. Patricia Chen, no relation to the FBI agent, specialized in trauma recovery for fraud victims. Her office in downtown Chicago became a space where Jerome could acknowledge the complexity of his feelings without judgment. Anger at Kesha's betrayal mixed with relief that she was alive somewhere, even if that somewhere was federal prison. Guilt about Zara growing up without her mother competed with gratitude that his daughter wouldn't be shaped by someone capable of such calculated cruelty. "You're allowed to grieve the woman you thought you married," Dr. Chan told him during one particularly difficult session. "That person was real to you, even if she never actually existed. The love you felt was genuine, even if hers wasn't. Don't let her deception invalidate your authentic experience." The words unlocked something Jerome hadn't known was trapped inside. He cried in that office for the first time since discovering the truth. Not for Kesha the criminal, but for Jerome the husband who'd believed in forever with someone who'd been planning her escape during their last anniversary dinner. Zara's questions evolved as she processed her mother's choices. "Did Mom ever really love us?" she asked one evening while they assembled a bookshelf together, her small hands struggling with the Allen wrench. Jerome chose honesty over comfort. "I think she loved us in the way she was capable of loving. But some people's capacity for love is limited by things we can't see or fix. That's not our failure. It's hers. I'm glad we have each other," Zara said simply, returning to the bookshelf with focus that suggested the conversation was complete for now. Children possessed remarkable ability to accept difficult truths and continue building their lives around them. The media attention was both validating and exhausting. Jerome declined most interview requests, but agreed to speak with a Chicago Tribune reporter writing about financial fraud targeting bereaved spouses. The article, published 3 months after sentencing, featured Jerome's story alongside 6 other victims from Diane's network. Reading those other accounts, a widower in Texas supporting his dead wife's brother for 7 years, a woman in Florida sending money to her deceased husband's mother while raising 3 children alone, made Jerome realize how perfectly Diane and her co-conspirators had understood human psychology. They'd weaponized the fundamental decency that made people want to honor their dead, turning love into a renewable resource they could harvest indefinitely. "You probably saved lives," Troy told him after the article ran. "Not literally, but you saved people from the kind of slow financial death that destroys families. Some of those victims were months away from losing their homes. The validation mattered, but what mattered more was the practical work of rebuilding." Jerome taught a financial literacy class at Zara's school, sharing his story as cautionary tale about verifying information even when grief made questioning feel disrespectful. Parents approached him afterward with gratitude, several admitting they'd made similar assumptions about obligations they'd never properly verified. One woman, recently widowed, thanked him with tears in her eyes. "My husband's cousin has been asking for monthly support. I felt guilty questioning it. Your story gave me permission to ask for documentation before committing to anything." This was the unexpected gift from his nightmare, the ability to help others avoid similar traps. Jerome found purpose in that protection, a sense that his suffering hadn't been entirely meaningless if it could illuminate dangers for others navigating grief's treacherous landscape. The dog arrived in spring, a rescue named Cooper with amber eyes and enthusiasm for everything. Zara devoted herself to training him with dedication that impressed the instructor. Watching his daughter teach Cooper to sit, stay, and roll over, Jerome recognized qualities Kesha's abandonment had somehow strengthened rather than broken. Zara was resilient, compassionate, capable of trust despite having every reason for cynicism. "She's doing remarkably well," Dr. Chun observed during a joint session. "Children are incredibly adaptable when they have one stable, honest parent. You've given her the truth, appropriate to her age, and consistent love. That's the foundation for healthy development." Summer brought little league games where Jerome cheered too loudly and Zara pretended embarrassment while clearly enjoying his enthusiasm. Weekend camping trips where they roasted marshmallows and invented stories about constellations. Simple moments that felt revolutionary in their authenticity. No hidden agendas, no manufactured obligations, just father and daughter building memories on solid ground. The final legal chapter closed when Kesha's assets were liquidated to pay restitution. Jerome received $23,000, more than he'd sent over 5 years, accounting for interest and penalties. The money went directly into Zara's college fund, transformed from theft back into investment in legitimate future. Standing in his backyard watching Zara and Cooper play, Jerome Williams understood that recovery wasn't about returning to who he'd been before. That man was gone, hollowed out by manufactured grief. This version of himself was harder, wiser, less willing to accept surface explanations, but also more grateful for genuine connections, more present with his daughter, more certain about the difference between real obligation and manipulated guilt. The scar tissue from betrayal had formed something stronger than the original innocence it replaced. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.